This is a Touchstone Publishers presentation, your trusted source of leadership knowledge. This is a Touchstone Publishers presentation, your trusted source of leadership knowledge.
Consider the commonly held challenge of presenting a great face in your marketing efforts. Your pictures, the headshot you show to the world, delivered to the press, social media platforms, current clients, future clients, and many more. As an empowerment photographer, Julie helps her clients see themselves in a way that they have never seen themselves before. Julie inspires women to celebrate themselves exactly where they are. Her life's work is empowering women because she believes an empowered woman makes the world a better place. Join us today on Essential Leadership Skills, the podcast.
Well, good morning. It's traditional for me to always say good morning, but I know it could be good morning, good evening, good afternoon, good night for wherever you are. But welcome, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to have a fantastic, eye-opening discovery today as we talk about Julie and her TEDx talk and how it has affected everything that she's been doing. Good morning, Julie.
Good morning, Glenn. It's so nice to be here. And good afternoon and good night for those.
Yeah, for those of you who all over the world, I hope. Okay, so a couple quick questions for you. And the first question I want to ask you is all about you, your company, or your organization, your TEDx talk. What is it about you, TEDx, or your organization that's different, that's unique, that most people just don't quite grab a hold of?
Well, my TED Talk really focuses on, no pun intended, I am a photographer. Well, maybe there is a pun intended, but I really, and my business, I focus on creating visuals for women so that they can see themselves in a way maybe that they haven't in the past, or in a way that they really want to see themselves, creating a vision for themselves of who they are and who they want to become. And my TED Talk speaks to that in a way that, we talk about women in our culture often say things, and it's interesting because I say, oh, I don't want to give voice to this, but I feel like I have to give voice to it to eradicate it. I hate being photographed. I'm not photogenic. I don't look good in pictures. I have yet to meet a woman who has said that, who has not said that. And it's simply not true. There are so many powerful reasons, women in business, absolutely, but that we need to be seen, and that needs to start with us. So that is the big, huge message. And I know we have quite an amount of time to talk about it. So I really appreciate you inviting me, Glenn, because it's absolutely something I'm very passionate about.
And you're more than welcome. You said something, though, at the very start of it, I kind of want to go back to giving voice to the negative message.
Yes.
Just on the outside looking in, this is not part of the actual TED Talk or anything, but why don't we do that? What scares us from giving voice to the message if we feel it's a negative message?
For me, it's really because what we say is powerful. What we say is powerful, and what we do is powerful. And when we say those things, we believe those things, we feel those things, and it affects our actions. And if we stay in fear, if we stay in the mode of whatever it is, I'm not photogenic, I don't like the way I look in a photograph, I hate having my picture taken, all of those things, if we stay in that fear, it keeps us small. And those messages keep us small, which is not what I'm about. I'm about making yourself live, helping to live your very best life and to see who you really are, because it's powerful. It's so powerful. Nearly 90% of all of the information that comes into our brain at any given moment is visual. And being able to see yourself as powerful, beautiful, capable, limitless is a huge gift for women.
Yeah, it is very tough. And even though you're saying for women, I know that that's the way our culture is, but I know there's some men, if
Yes.
I could raise my hand, that are that same way. Have that same kind of issue, that same kind of thing taking place. So I'll put my hand up so everybody can see that. That's me. I'm saying that I have that problem, that issue as well. I want to ask you, though, about your journey to doing this TEDx talk. What was that like? From the time you said, okay, I want to do this, I want to get it on paper, I want to get it on camera, I want to get practice with it, I want to go through all the grief of trying to get one, trying to be on stage, and I want to go through the grief of having to go someplace. I mean, sometimes you hear great stories and sometimes you hear troubling stories. Tell us about your journey from that time you started until the time it actually took place, you were actually on stage.
Well, unlike many things in my life, my TED journey was very smooth. It was a beautiful, I mean, that's not to say that it was easy, but it was a really beautiful journey. And the people who organized my TED Talk made it very empowering and a fantastic experience. And it started for me, it was a longer journey, but it wasn't a hard journey, I would say. It started for me, I was in a Toastmasters club and in a competition. It started with a talk that I gave that at the very beginning of my Toastmasters journey, I guess. And I went to a competition, and the title of the talk was "You Are Beautiful," and "You Are Beautiful" has the same message, that you have something inside you that nobody else has, that is meant to be seen and meant to be celebrated. I believe all of us have that. So it started with that, and I took a class because I thought, I do want to have a TED Talk someday. Okay. So it was several years. I had this in my mind, and it was percolating, and put it out to the universe. I'm going to do a TED Talk someday. And then to apply for a TED Talk, I know there are lots of different ways that people apply to TED Talks, and there's not a right way or a wrong way. But I had heard from a group that I'm in that, TEDx Cherry Creek, which is here in Denver, was offering, applications were open for their TED Talks, and it was going to be an all women's group. And I thought, this is great. This is a good fit for my talk, speaking to things about women, things that women are passionate about. And the application was due the next day. So I filled out this is how it went for me. So I filled out the application online, as maybe you know, or maybe you don't. And again, maybe they're all different. I had different questions that I had to answer online. And then there was a video component, which makes sense, a speaking component. I did have a video clip of my "You Are Beautiful" talk that I mentioned, but they wanted something that was, I think it was 30 to 45 seconds. So I'm in my studio right now. I had 2 portrait sessions that day. In between sessions, I popped into my studio, I picked up my phone, turned it on, did one take, and submitted it. And I was like, I have clients here and I'm focused on them. And I got chosen.
That must have been the idea that you had just one day as time was due. You didn't have time to try to make that 30, 35 seconds perfect.
Exactly.
It probably was perfect. Yeah.
And I think that's part of the reason, again, for my TEDx talk and for the organizers, it came through as very organic, authentic, and real. And I think that's something that I know lots of people do lots of different ways and are part of TED Talks in different ways.
Yeah, you get there different ways, different styles. How did you come up with the title? The title is what? How to Transform the Way You See Yourself? How did you create that title?
That came about as different things. When I started, it was a different title, and the organizers, again, I worked with amazing organizers for TEDx Cherry Creek, and they said, Julie, you can have a title of whatever you want. And so I changed it based on really the content of the talk. It's about the transformative process of seeing yourself in a photograph, really seeing yourself through someone else's eyes, but also through your own eyes, and really, really seeing. I mean, like, not a metaphor, with your own eyes, seeing, because it can transform the way you see yourself, you think about yourself. Like I said a moment ago, so much of the information that we receive, nearly 90% in each moment, is visual. So when we have a representation of that, of who we can be on our very best day, at the very best time, when we're in an environment that's comfortable, where we feel safe, where we have, what I do with my clients before they come to the studio is really prepare them and create a space so that they can feel all the things that they want to feel, and they can be their authentic selves. And then we capture that in an image. So that's a long answer to the title, but I really believe that the power of photography and having an actual image can change the way you see yourself.
I find that interesting, not for the reason I thought I was going to find it interesting. You said creating a safe place, and the safe place is in your studio.
Yes.
Now, some of the stories that you share in your TEDx talk really makes you realize that this is very transformative for people. It brings them to their knees and brings them to tears.
Yes.
And it actually, I think that's very powerful. But I want to ask you about a story you told yourself that actually I would think was not a safe place for this to happen, because you were traveling.
Yes.
And it was like, wait a minute, it rocked your world. What was and you called it a pagan temple.
Oh, that's interesting. You know, I saw that pop up, and
By mistake, yeah.
Yeah, it's so what was the question? I want to just make sure I answer the question, because I can.
You were
in
the temple, and I think you referred to it as a pagan temple. And you heard someone singing Amazing Grace. And you thought it was a person you were with, but they said, no, I wasn't singing. But when you first heard it, it brought you to your knees. It brought you tears. Tell us about that story.
So it actually was a church. I walked on the Camino de Santiago in Spain several years ago. And I did that as part of a sabbatical. I was working in a school district, and they were offering sabbaticals. And it was one of those times that the opportunity for sabbatical came across my desk in the form of an email. And I said, I have to do this. I've always wanted to live in Europe. And I was working at a school that there was a large Spanish speaking population. And I thought, I'm going to go and I'm going to learn Spanish so that I can better communicate with the students and the families that I work with. And so I was granted a sabbatical, and near the end of the sabbatical, I felt very drawn to walk on the Camino de Santiago, which is in northern Spain. My sabbatical ended up happening in Spain, where I lived and learned Spanish language and culture for 6 months. And I felt drawn, and I had learned about the Camino de Santiago while I was in Spain. It wasn't something that was on my bucket list to do for years or anything like that. But I learned about it in the classes that I took, and it is an ancient, historic, religious, cultural experience where there are paths, roads all over Europe that lead to the Compostela de Santiago, where St. James is buried. And several hundred years ago, and there's a legend about what happened. And several hundred years ago, people used to walk from all over Europe to the Camino de Santiago as a pilgrimage.
Yes.
And I thought I would love to walk and do this pilgrimage. I just felt very drawn to it. I can't explain anything else. And as I walked, and the story is in my TED Talk, and I can elaborate a little bit, but I walked and I walked, and every day it was this process of doing something very simple, walking, stopping to eat and have water, meeting people from all over the world, sleeping, getting up and doing the same thing the very next day, and carrying everything that I needed for this 3-week journey on my back. And it was remarkable in so many ways. And I have a book about that coming. But so I sat in this tiny church with 4 or 5 other pilgrims and a Spanish-speaking priest. I was fluent in Spanish at the time because I'd been living there.
Yes.
And all of a sudden, I heard Amazing Grace. I heard the song Amazing Grace. And it was beautiful. It was the sweetest song in the most beautiful voice.
Yeah.
And it just brought me to tears. My entire being felt, just filled with emotion, with releasing sadness from some things that had happened in my life,
Yes.
and also filling me with joy, knowing that I was worthy, that I am worthy of grace and living my purpose and my passion.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's, for me, the walk on the Compostela de Santiago, similarly to a TED Talk, all of our walks, all of our experiences are different. However, it was also transformative, and it was this very simple act that became meditative and contemplative.
Interesting.
Where I walked every day, I ate, I slept, I walked, I ate, I slept, repeat, and it was incredible. So, yeah.
Because you mentioned that the reason why it's kind of stuck in my mind when I first heard it on the TED Talk was you had just come out of a kind of a bad situation, just getting, kids growing up, I guess it sounds like, and divorce taking place, and you decided to take this sabbatical, and you pretty much did it alone.
I did. I
Okay.
did.
So that must have been the crust of how you decided to set up. Well, let me ask first before I even continue. Were you a photographer before you went there, or did that trip create that passion for you to become a photographer?
I have been a photographer since I was a little girl, and I have been looking for one of those of you who are old enough to remember. I had one of the Kodak Instamatic cameras with a flash cube on top that had, you got 4 flashes.
Yep.
You put in a cassette. And so I've been a photographer forever. I had a brilliant teacher in high school who also taught at the Art Institute of Chicago. And that passion started then. And I have a journalism undergraduate degree, so I did a lot of photography. It's been a passion my entire life. And I started my portrait business when I came back from the Camino de Santiago.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So now this trip, when it came back, it feels like, and I could be wrong and correct me, but it feels like this kind of spawned your next book that's coming out in January. Did it?
It did. It did. Yep. It really, again, it's kind of part of the TED Talk, as well as realizing my bigger purpose is to celebrate women who haven't been seen, who aren't seen, who don't want to be seen for one reason or another, whether it is our cultural messages that are, we're bombarded with all of the time, or whether they feel bad about some part of themselves. So it's a bigger mission to really say, you know what, you are beautiful, kind of going back to that original talk that I did. And that not only that, beauty in a way that is deep and real, and our physical self changes, but that passion and that beauty just shines all the time if and when we let it, and if and when we see it.
That makes me drift to a different question, because just being I don't know if you can't call me a senior citizen, but just being over 60 myself, and my friends are over, you make the statement, women 50 and better are powerful forces.
Yes.
Tell us, inspire us about that. Tell us a little bit more. I mean, yeah, it could be anybody, I understand. It could be any woman, but you're saying 50 and better. Why did you make that statement in the first place? And tell us the power behind it.
Because we are.
Okay, there you go. End of story. Next, yeah.
Well, and I think what happens historically in the past in our culture is that there's this idea that people after a certain point, and you hear it among our peers, they're not going to be hired for specific jobs, or they're not, whatever it is. There are different things in our culture that are not valued the way that they are in other cultures. And the wisdom and the age and the experience that we have creates such a richness, and that's something you can't buy. It simply is not. You know that, Glenn. And it's something that is powerful. And again, that's another piece that really, it's like, you think we've come all this way and we now don't have anything to offer. There's no logic. It doesn't even make sense. For me, it's a time of tremendous growth and blooming. And I was inspired recently. I was thinking about the Aeneas Nin quote of, the time came when to stay in the bud was more painful than it was to bloom. And somebody shared with me, it's more of a tree. It's a tree with deep roots. We have those deep roots, and that beautiful, that beautiful rising and creating shade and reaching for our highest self. So
creating oxygen for everybody to live with. Yeah, I like that analogy better. It's the tree above the roots.
Yeah. Yeah, we're powerful. We have a lot to offer, and I don't know how or when or where or why. I mean, I can guess we were a culture, historically, we've been a culture that we've used our physicality for work and to live and to protect ourselves. And we live in a culture now where we have the things that we need. We don't have to have that physical, strength to be powerful. We're powerful with our minds and our strong sense of who we are.
I like that a lot. And that I was thinking about it because you said it also just now, the culture of it. I mean, is it a worldwide culture, or do you think it's just mostly in the so-called industrialized countries? The culture of making sure that, and I'll just say it, women don't feel valued after 50. Or as valued as they should be.
It's interesting. I don't know all cultures. I know the culture that I live in and the culture that I grew up in. I am a first generation American as well as a longtime American on both sides of my family. I have, like we all do, different roots, to go back to the tree metaphor.
Yeah.
And so I have family in Norway. And I also, as I mentioned, and we talked about, that I lived in Spain for 6 months recently. And I think American culture might be more pronounced, that the wisdom that we have that comes with age historically, and I'm going to keep saying historically because I want to change that, has not been valued as much as it has in other cultures. So that's part of what I really hope to say. We have much more of life to live, and we have so much to offer.
Well, and I just kind of, like when we did our pre-show, made me start thinking about things, and I said, well, why is that? I mean, and then I really looked at our culture. And you probably don't have an answer for this, because I didn't prep you for it, or say, hey, I'm going to ask you this. But like, we have movies that celebrate men over 50. James Bond. All those movies are, James Bond is older. He's not the younger man. Sean Connery was the biggest hit of it when he reached his 60s.
Yes.
Well, every single one of those episodes, though, Bond himself is over 50.
Yes.
Do we have any movies that glorify over 50 for women?
That is a great question. And I can't think of any. I know that there are some shows that, but I don't know that they represent women who, well, recently Forbes magazine in 2020, this summer, they just announced 50 women over 50 who are having an impact. So we're right on the front of this wave.
We're getting there.
Yeah.
But that's why your TED Talk is so important, I think. We need to transform the way you see yourself.
Yeah.
Okay. And it scares me a little bit to say, okay, I'm going to transform this in a studio with the camera. Because I personally would be a little bit, okay, can you really do that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And I have looked at pictures of myself and said, don't like that. And so I say I'm not photogenic. So I imagine that when society teaches women, once you cross 50, we don't need you anymore. I imagine that's pretty hard. So I just kind of wondered about your system. You have some work out, a project out there, 50 plus fabulous project.
Yes.
Tell us about that just a little bit. And I'm also more so interested in how your TED Talk spawned to that.
Okay.
But tell us, go the whole route with me.
Well, first, I want you to know, Glenn, you are welcome to my studio, as is anyone, and to have the experience of what is it, how do I create that space and create that environment?
Mm-hmm.
There's a process before you ever get to the studio to really investigate and dive deep as how you want to be seen and who you are. So that's one. I heard you say that, and I felt like I needed to put that out there.
I appreciate that, especially since we live in the best state in the nation, actually best state province in the world, where you live in kind of a suburb of the best city in the world. We're not going to tell everybody what it is because we don't want to make them jealous. You already did a little bit, but okay. But you kind of already did in a couple spots. But yeah, I'd be more than happy to do that, excited to do that. Yeah. But the TEDx, how did that become the 50 plus fabulous project? If it became, or how did it morph to that? What is the 50 plus fabulous project?
Well, interesting. They happened simultaneously. Several years prior to my TED Talk, I had gone to a conference for photographers, for professional photographers, and it was a group of women who are all 50 and better. And I thought, I really want to bring this to a bigger audience, and I want to offer this because I am 50 and better also. I wanted to offer this to women in my area. I'm in Northern Colorado. And so I put out some Facebook ads and that kind of thing. And the response was incredible. And my original intention was to connect with 50 women and photograph 50 women who really wanted, again, to be seen, to know that they have this powerful force inside of them. And so they were happening at the same time as I was preparing for my TED Talk. The 50 and Fabulous Portrait Project was born. And as it evolved, like we all do, it also has become now a book project, which is so exciting to me because I feel like we will also have the opportunity, the women who choose to be part of this will have the opportunity to share some of our stories because we know them ourselves, of course. And that is also a very powerful way of being seen and being recognized and sharing our stories, because that's how we connect. We connect through our stories and how we see each other, our websites, our presence online. Things like this, Glenn, of course, are very powerful. And so to be able to have a combination of a woman who is 50 plus, 50 and better, seeing herself, seeing that actual physically seeing who she is,
Yes.
and then sharing a story. It can be only for her. She can share it with her company. I have photographed many women who are part of large organizations. I've photographed women who are entrepreneurs, women who are lawyers, authors, all different walks of life.
Yes.
And it can be, that story and that photograph can be shared in a much bigger way. So that's kind of how it all evolved into this 50 plus and fabulous project.
You know, what I also found interesting was the women that you're photographing. You had one that said, I know my husband sees me this way and other people see me this way, but I don't see myself that way.
Absolutely.
And I think if people listen to your TEDx talk again and kind of really take it in and say, okay, yeah, no, as a man, I can help my daughter feel better. I can help myself feel better. I can help other people feel better about that.
Yes.
So just want to make sure, you get a chance that you not only talk about yourself, you talk about, I think it was 2 other women, maybe 3, that you worked with that once they saw themselves, it took them to a place where they were truly empowered
Yes.
to do things. And you have this statement: it is important for women to be seen at all ages.
Yes.
Why?
Because we all have something to offer. I believe we are here as humans because we have so much to offer. And when we can see that in ourselves, when we can see what we offer, and it's maybe not what we offer, when we can see the strength and the power and that radiance of who
Yes.
we really are and who we're meant to be, it's no more hiding. No more hiding, ladies. Let's shine, because when we let our own light shine, we give others permission to do the same. And so it's like this, it's magnetic, but it's also this like atomic reaction, and all of the other things and all of the other people around us can also see themselves as all of the things that we're meant to be.
How does taking pictures create that? The portrait picture, how does that create that feeling in somebody to look at a picture of themselves and all of a sudden realize, I am powerful?
Yeah. Well, it's more than the photograph. It's the experience that I create here in my studio. And I had one woman come in, and she came in with her adult daughters and her adult granddaughter. And she was in her 80s. And as they were getting ready, we have makeup is included if women choose to do that. And they were getting ready. And there's this connection that I really foster with the women that I work with. And I'm going to get back to the story of the woman, the women who came in, but I create this environment where they feel safe and they feel that it's okay to show me who they are. It's okay for them to show me who they are. And they really want this for themselves for whatever reason it is. Maybe they've gone through something difficult, or maybe they're like, you know what? I have a business, and yes, it is time for me to step into my power, and I need to be seen, and they realize they need to be seen on Instagram and Facebook and all of those things. So there are lots of different reasons why women come to my studio, and then I create that atmosphere of trust by being authentic myself and sharing with the women that I photograph.
Wow.
So I just want to get back to this woman that I started the story about. And then we can talk more about the wow.
Okay.
So this woman was here, and they were getting ready, and we do all of the things, many things before the shoot, styling, and I work in my studio with lighting. Like I mentioned before, I've been a photographer a long time, and I know the skills, posing and all of those things. So this woman said to me, she said, I've never been photographed like, and she's probably in her 80s. I've never been photographed like this before, Julie. The only time I've ever had a professional photograph was at church, and it was wham, bam, thank you, ma'am. And I think there've been a lot of experiences like that where people have been treated like, it's a cattle call or something. And we are humans with feelings and emotions and such a bright light inside of us that I believe it's meant to be shared. And so when women trust that, when men trust it as well, we can create a beautiful photograph that is a representation of who we truly are inside at our core. And I believe we all have it.
Gotta have that. Gotta have that. I'll tell you what it kind of reminds me of, and I'm not trying to be political at all. When we have to remind people that women are powerful, we're missing something. And when people, it's just like the Black Lives Matters. We're not trying to remind everybody to say Black Lives Matters more than anybody else. We're just trying to remind you that Black lives do matter.
Yes.
It's like when you're saying women are powerful.
Yes.
You're not saying men are not powerful. You're saying women are powerful. I'm sorry, but I'm just reminding you that women are powerful.
Yes.
And that's what I kind of took from our pre-talk and today's talk. You believe that women are powerful and just need to be reminded of it. Women need to be reminded of it in your studio.
Yes. And they have a physical, tangible thing, a portrait that they can have on their wall, that they can have in an album to remind them every single day. Because I believe each of us need to be reminded of that. And so I'll share something with you interesting one. And again, not to be political, but I had a sign in my front yard. A lot of people have signs in their yard about, and so I had a sign in my yard of, love is love, Black Lives Matter, all of those things. And I got some pushback from one of my neighbors. And I said, I believe that we can create a world where everybody knows their value and their power and their strength and what's meant to shine. And to your point, exactly, it is not putting down anybody else. When the water rises, we all rise. It's part of our humanity.
Yeah, part of our humanity. I like the way you say that. Nature, but it's really our humanity to help raise the water. Let's all float higher in the air and float to the top.
Yes.
I usually ask people to tell me what's inspiring, tell us something inspiring about, but that's what you've been doing all day. But I want to ask you this real quick, and I want to be really respectful of your time, but I want to the thought came to me when I was listening to your TED Talk again and putting together my notes for today, that this is a very powerful thing for leaders, entrepreneurs.
Yes.
All this, because you can take this is what you need. If you need a good headshot done for your profile pictures or for your press kit, why not do it in a way that lets your light shine?
Oh, absolutely.
So that's why I was kind of started getting excited to get you here, because we needed to know, okay, here's the base of it. But gosh, if you're in business, you didn't make this video for business, you just made this video for women. But if you're this is a great place to do it. How do people get a hold of you?
My website is my name, julieulstrup.com. And I think my name has been on the screen, so hopefully people can see that. I also have a PDF that I will send you the link. You can sign up for that, because in addition to headshots and personal branding and all of those other things, like you mentioned, Glenn, for business, we also need, it's both and, kind of like what you said and what I was saying about, yes, when anybody who hasn't seen themselves as powerful and beautiful, but we also do need pictures on our phone to get ourselves out there in the world, all of those kind of things. So I do have a PDF that has some tips so that before you come in for your branding session or headshots or a family session, something like that, you can feel more confident even in taking photographs of yourself or having someone take a photograph of you with a phone, because there are some tips that are quite easy. And then you can come to the studio and you can have the full experience and the magic happens, and it can be quite, oh, there's my email, or there's my website. It can be quite transformative.
Yeah, it feels like it really can. So maybe my last question. What question did I not ask you that I should have asked you?
Let's see, about my TED Talk, about well, one of the things that I like to share, and I don't even know how you could have asked this, but one of the things that I like to share is with everybody who I work with is that we can live the rest of our lives as the best of our lives. Whether, you're a 17-year-old high school senior who's getting ready to go out into the world, whether you're a young entrepreneur, whether you're a 50 and better human being who really still has a lot to offer. Yeah. I believe that having an experience, a transformative experience, and you don't have to go across the world and walk for 3 weeks, 500 miles across northern Spain to have it. Coming to my studio, you can really be transformed and live that best of your life for the rest of your life when you're able to see and know that you are all of the things that you're seeking.
Absolutely wonderful. Your email address is on the screen, so I'm going to leave that up there as we close out. But I got to tell you, I think we're missing the boat if we don't find somebody like you that can help us get a hold of what has to take place.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for taking the time to help people understand, shine your own light, and get a picture that shows that light. Really greatly appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and you're so welcome. I appreciate being on the show, and I look forward to sharing it.
Doing more, because we're going to have you back at least one more time when your book comes, but I think we have room for 2 more discussions after this one, so I look forward to doing this again.
Thank you, Glenn. It's been fabulous.